So to start, you're gonna need your safety equipment, things like your gloves, what's not shown are my glasses. You're also gonna have things like your tools that you're gonna need to cut out your pattern. So pliers, I have two different kinds, glass cutting material, cutting oil, things that you're gonna need to trace your pattern out on your glass. So your Sharpie and your actual pattern itself. And then when you're going to assemble the equipment, you have your soldering iron. I have the Hako 601. So that one's good. Your solder. So this is the 6040 Ameriway solder. And then you also have your copper wire, which is what we're going to be attaching the flowers to, and then your copper foil. So I believe this one's just regular backed. It might be black. No, it is black backed. But either way, and this is 732 width. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the pieces, and then I'll cut to assembly. Just a preview of the glass before it's all cut out and grinded. So to start, before I actually start soldering the pieces that I've cut out and foiled, I want to note that for the just regular soldering of the pieces, that my iron is set to 360. Alright, so for assembly, we're going to start with the 3 back pieces. These petals are going to be kind of only attached a little bit, so just in the center here. And so I've already soldered around all of the pieces, so they're all individually soldered. And so now we're going to attach them together. So for this first one, we actually want to hold it just at a little bit of an angle, maybe like 10 degrees, maybe not even that, right? So we're just holding it up a little bit, and we're gonna lightly tack solder it here to that one petal. Right, so once that one's done, we're going to do the same thing with our other side. Again, not holding it up too much, but just enough to give it a little bit of a 3D, so it's not just super flat. And so for this one, we're doing the same thing where we're attaching it at an angle, right? But we're not, we're going to attach it, we're going to tack solder it to both. Okay. So once we have those tack soldered, we're going to attach all 3 together. Now be careful with this because your pieces may start to move since it's at an angle, right? So once we have those and they're all soldered, we're going to go ahead and fill this in just a bit. Make sure this is elevated, because some of our other pieces are going to attach to this elevated solder. Okay, so we have that one. We're going to flip it over. We're going to solder the back. We're going to use just a little bit of flux. I'm going to try to go up a little bit higher on the back here, just so it's easier for us to attach these flowers to the copper wire later. And again, my soldering iron is set to 360. All right, so for this, we're just going to drop a little bit of solder in between each petal, so that it's not, there's no like gap. Okay, just a little bit on each side. Once we have that, I'm going to return my piece to its rightful side. Now we want the biggest petal, that circular petal, to be facing upwards, and this is where we're going to then look to attach our like elephant ear pieces. So these are going to be touching, and they're going to be slightly angled as well. Okay, so I'm going to solder one first and have it somewhat in the center, right? I'm gonna put a little flux on here and on this piece as well. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of solder and attach it here. And so because these are, you know, very finely soldered, we're gonna have to go around the whole piece on the side to attach it to the petal below, right? So that it doesn't move. I know that this would typically be considered a hinge spot, which definitely is. Okay, so we have our one petal attached. Now, if you look in between these petals, right, it's hard to kind of see, you can also drop solder in here, which is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to hold it, grab some solder. I know it's hard to get it on camera. There we go. So now this is attached to the back as well, right? So it's a stronger attachment. Now it's still like if somebody came up here and like pushed this down, of course it's going to break. Like with all things, being more gentle is better. All right, same thing for the other side. Again, holding it a little bit at an angle. We want some of that bottom petal showing, right? So we want to look at where our petal is placed. So yep, that's good. So I'm gonna hold it, solder these two pieces together. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so then it's gonna look something like that, right? The best thing about these 3D patterns for flowers is that they do not have to be perfect, right? Because nature is oftentimes not perfect. And so you can have some freedom with this pattern and how you place them. Right, so I'm gonna drop some down in the center here, just to strengthen that. And then I'm gonna tilt on the side and do the same thing over here as well, and on the back. And this is, I would say this is probably the toughest part of putting these flowers together, is the attachment of these petals, just because they're, you know, the 3D aspect of it. So we're gonna build up a little bit in the center again because we're putting some in there. So here's the flower without its center parts, right? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and attach the center pieces now. So the first one we wanna do is this cross-looking piece, and this is going to sit pretty much right at the base of these two. Again, kind of at, this one is more of a 45-degree angle from the bottom of the table up. So we're gonna attach here. And so if you have these pieces out on display and stuff for people to look at them, because obviously why would you make it if nobody's gonna look, right? You, just like regular orchids, these are very, I wouldn't say fragile, but you want to, you know, take care with, you know, either touching them or moving them because of these extended pieces. Okay, so now that we have our, that cross piece extended, we're going to go ahead and attach our little foot pieces. And so these are going to go directly in the center here because they're going to be covered up by what looks like the pollen pieces. So for these ones, we want to hold a little bit extended, not a lot, but we are attaching them directly to the middle here. And same thing for our other one. With the foot pieces facing upwards or towards you, depending on how you solder, right? Alright, so now we have our flower with our foot pieces and the kind of sticking out cross piece. And so now we're going to attach our pollen pieces. Now these guys, you want to put them together. They're going to touch and they're going to be on the inside, kind of flat against your foot pieces. So I'm going to go ahead, place this here. Flat against this side. I'm gonna just use a little bit of flux because solder's acting funny. All right, so place that flat here. Be easier. And attach. Okay. Where it is gonna meet the other pollen piece, we want to make sure it's flat because otherwise it's going to be kind of extended and it's going to be hard for that other piece to attach. All right, so then we have their other piece and we're going to hold it flat against where we want it to attach. We're going to attach it to our other piece. Now this part you want to have a raised bit of solder as well, just to keep a nice clean finish look. And then what I like to do is tilt up and see how there's like a lot of places for the solder to attach itself to. So we're just gonna go ahead and fill that in. Make sure that looks nice. Now it's all connected. And so there's one other piece down here that could also attach, and that's that cross piece to that back piece that I talked about earlier. So I'm just gonna take my iron, put it in there, and attach all of those pieces together. All right, so now that we have done all of our soldering, we have ourselves one 3D orchid flower. Now, contrary to what we may think with flowers, right? These guys, because they're glass, they're really heavy, and so we have to attach them to that copper wire that we talked about, and that was at the beginning of the video. So what I'm going to do next is walk through how to attach one of these copper glass flowers to that copper wire. You would just then repeat this however many flowers you want on the stem, right, for personal preference. So I'm going to go through that next. Alright, so for copper wire, I'm using bare copper indoor-outdoor wire, 8 gauge. I bought this at Lowe's. Can't remember how much it actually was, but I'm going to go ahead and unspool some and cut out the desired length of my stem. Alright, so for my wire, I cut myself about 2.5 feet, and so we're going to attach kind of lower here with this main flower. We're gonna attach probably about halfway through the wire, because what you're gonna do is for orchids, you know, they're scattered about. So you're gonna have the largest flower probably towards the bottom, and then you'll just go up the stem with smaller orchid shapes, right? So the pattern has 3 sizes of orchids, this one being the largest. So you'd put this more towards the bottom, and then you would scatter medium and small flowers up towards the top, maybe even doing free-handed buds if you want to towards the end of the stem. You want to leave a good amount of stem at the bottom, just because this is what you're going to need to use to anchor into your pot, and to have it stand onto something. What I also like to use is wooden dowels, and so show you kind of how to assemble it in a pot after assembly of the flower to the stem itself. So we're gonna go ahead and go into that now. Okay, so this is kind of how I bent my wire into shape. So this straight part is going to be what kind of wraps around the dowel and attaches to it. And I'm going to start with attaching the first flower up here towards the start bend of the wire. I'm going to attach it at an angle so it kind of goes with the wire as well, with the stem. And so what we have to do is be able to attach this copper piece right to this flower here. And because I'm doing it kind of as it bends with the flower, it's going to be able to attach along this line, right around this, where this flower is, and then this main piece where they all connect. But we have to go ahead and kind of coat this part of the wire first before we can attach the flower to it. And so that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so to start, we're going to up the temperature of our iron. I'm going to go pretty high, up to 540. And so this is, you know, as high as it can go. It's going to get really hot. And so we kind of need that so that we can tin coat this this wire. Okay. Okay, so after coating the wire with flux, I am just coating the wire in solder. Okay, so this is just the one side and its edges. I'm gonna flip the wire over to be able to do the other side. Okay, so now that I have soldered the places where I would like it to be, where I'd like the flower to be on the wire, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this off. Get some of this burnt part off. Just enough. This is all going to be covered up by either the flower or the floral wire or the floral tape that I'm going to put over later. Okay, so now that we have it soldered, this is where we're going to lay our flower underneath where the wire is, and we're going to go ahead and solder it on to the wire. So I'm going to use a little bit of flux here and on the wire itself, just to encourage the solder to take. And so now that I have I've covered my wire, I'm gonna turn my iron down to 360 again. Too hot, it's gonna, I don't want it to ruin the tip of the iron. Okay. So now that we have that, we're gonna go ahead and attach the wire to our flower. So you can do tack solders to start. But the goal, you know, obviously is to have the whole thing attached. And because these flowers are really heavy, you want to ensure that it has a good attachment to your wire. Now, I wouldn't worry so much about kind of the look of this because it's, at least for mine, I cover mine up with floral tape. And so you're not gonna see kind of how the flower attaches to the stem anyway, because it's gonna be covered up by that tape. And I'll show you what I mean in a little while. Alright, so I'm putting a healthy amount of solder onto this flower and this wire, just so that that we don't have any problems with it moving. I'm actually going to turn my solder up a little bit, soldering iron up a little bit. I'm going to go to 410 just so that it's a little easier to melt this solder onto this wire. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so once we have that one side done, I'm just gonna spin the flower around so I can see the front. And I'm gonna attach the flower on this side to the wire as well, ensuring that it has a good hold. Okay, so once it's attached to both sides there, be careful when touching your wire because it can get hot. So if you need to use gloves, I would recommend doing that as well. But I'm just gonna pick up my flower with a paper towel. And so I'm just gonna set my flower up. Oops. So I'm just going to set my flower up kind of like this. You want it standing. And I'm going to put some solder in those crevices right there. I know it looks really dirty at the moment. Trust the process. Same thing on this side. So I'm going to put solder in the middle there. I'm going to put solder in the middle here as well. Alright, so now that I have solder in the middle of both of these sides, I'm going to go ahead and wash the piece, and I'm going to start wrapping it in the floral foam or floral tape just to give you guys an idea of what that'll look like. So I'll be right back when this is all washed. Okay, so now all cleaned up, this is what the flower looks like on the stem. And so now what I'll do is I'm just going to wrap the back with floral tape, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like when it's on the dowel. Okay, so after wrapping the wire in floral tape, and then you just kind of twist it around this dowel, this is what the back of the flower looks like. So it is also encapsulated in tape. And so you would do this up the entire stem, obviously after the flowers have been placed on the rest of the wire. This is just, you know, for this tutorial purposes, but once you wrap the wire with the tape, that is kind of what gives it, you know, the stem no longer that copper wire effect. I mean, if you want to keep it undone, you can. But yeah, so this is the final product. This is kind of what that orchid should look like. Again, flowers aren't perfect, so make it your own. But I love this yellow and this light. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to No Green Thumb, No Problem. This is with the Orchid Pattern. I'm Erica, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.